All right. So week 16, I just finished the last code along written instruction. And to walk all the way through that process from beginning with, the HTTP request using the callback pattern, moving into promises, understanding how the different promises can be chained together, right? And then converting into fetch, right? And then using async await. You get to the end, and I think it's like, why didn't you just? I guess there could be a case somebody might make for why didn't you just show the async await and forget the rest? Because I think without that fundamental understanding of how that asynchronous code is really working, when you look at async await, it's so abstracted from what really happens that when you do need to modify it, which if you do dev 2 with option 2, you may need to. And part of that, and this is where, I wanted to talk just a little bit today in week 16, and just right off the gate as well, is that if you are planning on selecting dev 2, option 2, and you're going to find an API, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. In some cases, like, definitely find one sooner rather than later. Definitely don't pay for one. That's not the idea. You will most likely need a key. Most of these APIs that you're trying to hit will require a key. Definitely use fetch, right? That's part of the requirements to use async await. But the key is to be able to first hit that endpoint, get the data back, and then present it somehow on the screen. And I'll show you, just because I brought up mine again, and I think I've shown it to you before. But here's what I did: I definitely could do a better job on the chart, but it met the basic requirements for what I needed. So what I did is I hit an API. Matter of fact, let me just move over. Actually, let's just finish this. So I did it by cases and then deaths per state. I know it's not exactly the most cheerful thing to think about, but COVID really presented a lot of opportunity for data reporting. So what happens here is when you change it, it changes it to the case versus, and then you can see it by death, and then it does it by state. So how I did it was, of course, using async await. Um, and in this case, I hit here's the data point, and actually here's the key, which is no longer valid. By the way, anybody watching from the YouTube land. Then I waited the JSON, but probably the more challenging part was figuring out this part. I ended up using a third-party library for this chart concept, so I had to actually hit, and it's called chart.js, in order to get that data first on the screen and then the way that I wanted it. So I ended up having to do some reverse and reverse the labels in this way because of the way I wanted to list them. And then I used, as we have seen, right, of course, a function, but within this function, we call new, which we've seen the class. Now, in this case, I didn't write the class. I leaned into that's why including the chart.js, then I just had to call new, and these are all the setup that was needed. So I had to pass it, right? So I had to pass it this huge object in order to tell it how I wanted my chart set up. So it's not that it was a lot of code. It was just that it took a while to kind of figure this part out. So yeah, first figuring out how to call the API, get the data, get it in the format I wanted, and then how to chart it. And that's what I'm saying with Dev 2 is that, you know, the sooner if you're choosing this path, the sooner the better. Because you can run into various things like last week. And I made the mistake of typing Coors beer, and it was cross origin resource sharing. It was the thing I was trying to say. And sometimes just using fetch is will solve some of this, but not all of it. And this is where, when you're looking at the documentation, For the API, they should give you also examples, which should also make this easier, but you could run into this. Now, the way this is generally fixed is running a server-side API call to something like Node or Python or something else, but that is also not the idea. The idea is to have it all be client-based. And when I say that, I'm talking about like what we saw in the course, where he hit his own API. He built that endpoint to bring back the puzzle. Okay, so anyway, that's just, I wanted to talk about that, so I kind of started with the last item first. So I guess my point is that the sooner you work on that, the better. Okay, I know I've been talking about the end of the semester, and by the time most of you watch this, I will have already released the sign up sheet. But just to reiterate, right, code reviews start on the 9th, which is in this case, if you, depending on when you're watching this, the next week. And then here's the due date. Then here's the last date to submit this. Now, as well as the last date to do a code review. Now, this is the last date to submit right here, but this is the last date to do the code review. And you can see all the signups on there, right? It's also, in this case, at that point in the afternoon, it's also the last time you can submit any late work. So one of the things I want to see in your reply is that you understand that, right? So if you complete a code review, but you're like, oh, you know what, I was going to get some late work done, it also has to be done by this last point of the day. So, and I believe it's 2:30. You can look at the sign up schedule to see it, but it's the whatever the last time I do a code review will be also the last time you can submit late work. But if I was you, I would not wait until then. This is a good time to do it now. Okay. So I just wanted to say that. Now, the other thing, and I've kind of mentioned this, but I actually want to show it again because I think it's worth talking about, is actually here. And I'm just going to switch over to what's called the student view real quick. Is it on in grades? When you go to grades, this is just my student version of my count for students, which obviously has not been populated. So yours is going to look different, but it functions in the same way that you can put in grades, right? Remember what happens with late work, right? So, oh, now that one. Now on attendance, right? Those I kind of hang them out there for a little while, but they do not affect your grade. So I want you to know that. But the code-alongs, if you were submitting them late, right? The learn togethers, if you're submitting them late. Now, what this does is it gives you the what if, right? So you're asking, because this is often what I hear from students, what if I make up some work? What will my grade be? Or how, Rio, and this is a question I get, what do I need to do to get this specific grade in your class? And the answer is you can figure that out yourself all the way to the last dev, right? Remember, even though these are 100 points, as it looks like it might be the same as a learn together, it's not. It's about 16.5 each one of these devs for your final grade. So use that what if scenario. I'll refer back to this video if you've forgotten or need to ask me, just because this is what I want you to know how to do and how to find. Really important. Okay, so let me leave this view and come back. So the other thing is, because of having just finished the last code along, the code up, also finishing the course, right? So finishing this part of what we're doing with the course. So let me just bring that over real quick. So, right now there's a bit of this course left that you can still do. I think worth doing, right? So there's an app themes, there's the Webpack and Babel, and this is for what we call transpiling things. And then there's a wrap up. So there's some content you definitely could consume, but we consume most of this course, which I think is awesome. And then, if you want to give me feedback on the Udemy course or on this course, you can give it to me here in this reply, or you can give it to me directly, or maybe I'll ask for that. No, I think here would be a good place, right? I always appreciate feedback for courses because, as much as I try to make this a good experience for students, I understand that sometimes, right, my style and student style may not always work. And it's unfortunate, but it does happen. But I'm also open to, like, how could I make this better? right? What's your input about that? Because you're my best customer for feedback. Is somebody who has hung in here with at this point in the course means you definitely have a feel for how this class runs, and your ideas of how to make it better are way important to me. Um, I try to say at the beginning of the semester, and maybe I need to reiterate it more, like, if you need help, please reach out to me directly. Maybe sometimes I miss a message out on Discord. I do hold office hours, but sometimes maybe those don't work for students. So maybe it's just redundant, like I need to, say it more. But, but maybe it's also the way we handle things, like, the code alongs, the Udemy courses, the devs, right? Any part of that you feel like, again, your feedback is way important to me. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say here. So for next semester, I'm questioning whether I'm going to use the Udemy course. It's, as we saw, I don't know if you heard me say this. You can see towards some of the latter data, it's becoming a little dated from 2018. And there are some newer courses. I really wish Andrew would do a newer course, but I mean, it's all still very relevant, and it's still called modern JavaScript. So I definitely believe it's definitely taught in the more modern way, but there are some techniques and things I'd like to see that didn't, like the whole async await, I think could have been handled, not necessarily from the way I talked about it before, but there's just so much more to say here. But I think this is a good introduction, so I kind of go both ways on that as well, right? So your feedback for both the Udemy course, would you want me to keep using it, or would you want me to look at something else, like if you were a student coming into next semester? Next semester I will not be teaching Python. I will only be teaching JavaScript and CIT82, which is Introduction to Web Development. So that will be my schedule for next semester. Oh, so the only other thing I would say for this week, right, for this last week of code ups, um, is I put some notes. Make sure you do create a new README file and read, because I do give you a few points for populating that. And then I don't have a video yet, because I think the refactor for week 16 is pretty straightforward, right? It's, you're, instead of using the HTTP request. God, that's a mouthful. Convert it into fetch, and then callbacks into async await, and then provide your link. So I haven't required you to do additional functionality. That was for week 15. So just converting it over will be enough for this week. Actually, I should be week 15 to 16. I need to fix that. So I'm glad I saw that. But again, if you want me to go over in this in more detail, I generally do provide my own video going over how I did it. So let me know. I'm always open to doing that content if you feel like you need it. Okay, I think that's it. We have one more week of attendance, week 17, and that will be our last one. So I'd hoped to get this over break, but honestly, I got called into jury duty. So it kind of messed up some of my plans, which is fine. It's fine for break. But actually, in the real world, we're just finishing week 14, so I'm still ahead of the game a little bit. Hope to release the rest of this content very soon. All right, thanks so much. And for your reply, do you understand that the end of the semester due dates as far as the code review, and do you also understand that that is also the last time you can submit late work if you so desire? Let me know, and let me know if you have any questions about any of the content I've covered. Have a good one. Peace out.